This is Come, Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira. And tonight we are talking identity. Who do you think you are? A lot of times, the more you start digging, the deeper you will find that actually there is a lot to it that just meets what meets the eye. If you just joined us, I'm Kassim Kayira, and tonight we are talking about identity and the crisis that goes with identity. How do you delve? How do you deal with an identity crisis emanating from the places that we have been to? Many of us came from different places: Uganda, Congo, South Africa, Rwanda, Uganda, Nigeria, Ghana, Zimbabwe, Tunisia, Morocco, even the rest of Europe, and you are here. How do you define yourself? And it would be very interesting just to hear from your own children. If you have any children with you in the house, please, it would be very good just to hear their own side of the story. It would be interesting just to hear how they handle the issue of identity. How do they define themselves? Two events now that I would like to relate to you that would help us get into the conversation. With my own children, I'm thinking, yes, we introduce ourselves as a Ugandan, Rwandan, and then they are British. But that's a subject that has never come up because I took it for granted. I just imagined that that would be sort of a given. They would know we are from Uganda. So hospital appointment, son goes to hospital, skin allergy. Part of conversation with the doctor is, did you travel? Because probably it might be an allergic reaction resulting from a travel abroad. And said, yeah, I was on holiday in Uganda. Okay, yes, so Uganda, and then you came. Yes, my skin started becoming like this, and so we are assessing that. And so, where are you from? And he says, England. And I found that quite telling. I didn't see that coming, and like almost out of the blue, boy looks at himself as English. And yes, he was born and he's been raised here, but by Ugandan Rwandan parents. How do you handle that? Honestly, to me, I thought, because the conversations at home are all, we are who we are. So then the question becomes, that really sort of got me thinking, but also the conversation around the charity worker whom I've just mentioned at the start regarding her situation. Whether was she feeling uncomfortable? Was she feeling, not proud to be of black background, of black heritage, to a certain so much that she was British. She was as British as they come because she was born and raised here, and therefore wanted to sort of assert that particular situation. We'll be hearing from young people. It will be very interesting, first of all, to hear their own take on this, just in terms of whether my son's situation or experience was a one-off or it is the general situation. You might be surprised. Well, growing up in Kenya, I grew up in Kenya in the 80s when Kenya hadn't really become so foreigner friendly, just in terms of like receiving people coming in. And many Ugandans had fled after the overthrow of Idi Amin in 1979. And many Ugandans had fled there, even during the course of Idi Amin's rule, but also following his overthrow. So many Ugandans had gone there. So one of the survival ways was to look as local as you could be. And I went to live in a place called Machakos, which is about 40 miles from Nairobi. That's where I went to school in. And got adopted, so we almost got adopted by local Kamba people. I got a Kikamba name, which was, my name is Kilonzo. And yeah, I even had the parentage, including a mayor of the city who was late now. She was called Beth. She was the mayor of the city. And I was being told comfortably that was my auntie from my father's side. Long story short, we had already established a link with a village, which is Kiambu village in Kitui district, and we had relatives there. For a young person growing up with all the movements that we were going through, that starts sort of bringing a sort of an identity crisis, and you wonder where you fit in the bigger picture. I was born Ugandan, born in Barara, in a home where we spoke more than 4 to 6 languages at any one point in time. My grandmother strongly Rwandese, and therefore her Rwanda influence is absolutely strong. It is in there. embedded in the home. And then we are living in Kiswahili, in Barara, in a place called Kakoba, which is just about a mile from the town, from the city center. And that's a Muslim place, and therefore it was called Kiswahili. So Swahili was another language that was around us. Of course, being Ankole, Runyankole was in there. And then for anyone who became Muslim, even if you had not even, you were Munyankole pure, the moment you became Muslim, because it is the Baganda who took Islam into Ankole, a person, whenever you became a Muslim, they would say, Akahinduka Muganda. So you became Muganda and Muswahili by becoming Muslim. That's one interesting fact. So anybody who became Muslim, because it is many Bagandas who have gone there and spread Islam, you automatically learn to Luganda as a way of being able to understand the rest of the religion. And therefore, even Banyankore now coming to learn Luganda. So Luganda was naturally there because we were Muslim in a Swahili place where Baganda had taken the religion into Ankole. You can imagine that kind of confusion. The fusion, of course, it comes in handy. It can come in quite handy in some instances, because as a result, I speak 12 languages comfortably. And quite often when I mention this, people just get shocked. But I speak 12 languages resulting from this kind of confusion that, built around the place that I call home. But then immediately we start moving. So we migrate to Rwanda in the 1979 war when Idi Amin was overthrown. So Kinyarwanda was, sort of naturally being strengthened there. We have relatives in Burundi. So at the end of the day, when you ask me, who are you? That might be honestly a difficult question. That while I automatically, say I'm Kayira and Tambulengo Muganda, the other influences that have been part of my life make it a totally different subject altogether. So the issue of identity for me is kind of special in this context. That living in Machakos, learning Kikamba and speaking Kikamba comfortably with the grandmother and auntie who is a mayor of the city who could never have been Ugandan in that instance, that created a particular identity. Then you move, you come to the United Kingdom, 5 years, 3 years down the road, you have the British citizenship, and then you adopt to another situation. Now think about our own children that have been born as a result of this confusion, and then bring it. My wife she's Manyema, so that's Tanzanian Congolese, and then Langi and Northern Uganda. And you bring it now into my own fusion of confusion and see what you end up with. Now, with the product that comes out of that, you can understand the confusion. Let me not confuse you any further. Tonight, we are talking about identity and who do you think you are? Looking at all these backgrounds, and especially on the young people, because for us as adults, we might be able to sort of stand and say, this is who we are on the basis of where we have been and how we've been brought up. But our children have been brought up in a totally different environment, and it will be very interesting to hear from them. Why don't I just bring in the young people here and just hear from them, first of all, and then we'll open up the conversation. Well, the program is, remember, the way we do it, if you have any points burning in your chest, just go into the chat room and you can throw it there. You can raise your hand. It is a conversation that we have. Everybody is an expert in this particular program because you have an experience that you would like to share, and we would be very, very much interested in hearing it. Nabira, I come to you first to get us into this conversation as a young person, and I'll be going to Shalabil as well, as young people to sort of get us into this conversation. Nabira, do you mind putting your camera on, or you're not comfortable where you
are? Maybe not today. Maybe another
right.
day.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum salam.
Welcome. Let's talk with Kassim Kayira. You are a young person. Probably we can just establish that without a doubt. Who do you think you are?
I think there's a lot of labels, to be honest.
Yes.
I don't think anyone can just identify as one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be Muslim, you can be Black, you can be a woman, you can be a man, you can be British, you can be Ugandan. Like there's a lot that goes into one person, because you don't just identify as where you come from. It also goes down to gender, religion, all these different other stuff. It can be your role as well. So if, let's say, you're a doctor, you're a teacher, you're a student, there's a lot of things that people can identify themselves as, because
Mhm.
there's lots of things and steps that you take in life that make you progress.
Right.
So yeah, I think you can identify as a lot
So,
of things
so
in your
if I was
lifetime.
trying to find out who Nabira is, define for me who Nabira is, since I can't even see her on video.
Um, a Black Muslim student, a Ugandan one, but born in London, so I'm also British.
So British and Ugandan. The natural dispensation then would be, let us assume, 2035 or 2040, Uganda gets into the World Cup and England is there. You are British and you are Ugandan. Ugandan is playing against England. Who would you support?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to support Uganda.
You'd have to support Uganda.
Yeah,
Why?
because yeah, I was born here, but this is not where I'm from. I was just born here. This is just the environment that I grew up in. But like down to DNA, I'm from Uganda.
How do you think Britain would feel hearing that, coming out of you?
Britain wouldn't feel any type of way if we're being honest.
Yes. No,
I
but
don't think.
while I understand the honesty, I'm also trying to look at allegiance. Because if you're swearing allegiance, especially when you're taking up your citizenship, when you go to take the oath of allegiance to the crown, to the British crown, to the British government, you are sort of committing yourself to that. It's almost quite different with people in America, and I hope we shall be hearing from Hafsa and daughter there in the United States, just in terms of the level of patriotism. You find that in America, anyone who goes to America becomes so American because there is a lot of emphasis on patriotism, and yet there is a lot of flexibility on the British side that you can still remain who you are as long as you contribute to British society, without causing it harm. It's almost all right.
Yeah, I feel like with the UK,
Mhm.
there's lots of cultures that
Yes.
you can see. So you can freely be, let's say you can freely be Indian, you can freely be Pakistani, freely be Ugandan, wherever you are in the UK. And
Mhm.
it's accepted and everyone kind of respects it. There's even laws in place where, diversity and inclusion needs to happen, or like you can get blacklisted, you can get fired, stuff like that. But in the US, I'm not quite sure. But
We will definitely be hearing from the US. Now, Nabira, I'm also thinking just in terms of many of us parents, and I'm speaking from experience, as first time, as a first generation immigrant, sort of investing back home. We're building, mansions, big houses back home in the hope, well, one, we are creating status. People know you are abroad and therefore you need to leave the part. But there's also the fact that we are also planning for our children because that's how it is submitted. Considering the fact that your life seems to be a lot more here than it is there, I'd like to hear your view on
um, it's a bit controversial. But
that.
obviously my mum's not here, so let me talk freely.
But you know what, it's all right.
It's like that. It's like I feel like it's a dream of theirs to come here. I think in their head they think it's simple. They come here, they'll be able to make money, build whatever they need to build back home, and go there and just relax for the rest of their lives. But if we're being realistic, lots of people have built like big mansions and Simari Bichi, Dorcas, everything in Uganda, and they don't even live enough. They don't even get to like embrace their hard work enough in their lifetime.
Mm.
They just say, "Oh yeah, I'm building it for my children. I'm building it, when I want to move back." It's like they've kind of deluded themselves to think that it's gonna happen, that they're gonna go back and move back forever, which they actually don't. Because once they go over there, if we're being honest, the job market over there is atrocious. Like how the pay over there, I don't think someone can live comfortably after living in London to go there to get such a huge pay, drop.
Mm.
and they're saying, "Oh, I'm building it for my kids and stuff." Half of the children haven't even been back to Uganda. They can't even speak Luganda. If we're being honest, they can't put a simple sentence together. How are they gonna go there and live there in that house? That I don't think they'll be able to do it.
Nabira, you are there. Yeah, Nabira, you
some
are there. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
some might be able to do it, but the youth of today, I don't see them moving back to Uganda and trying to build there and upkeep the house. Majority of the time, they just sell it off.
Right. Well, listening to this conversation, Nabira, don't go away. Is Shabil Musoke, who is a young man as well, born and bred in England, I would imagine. And it would be good just to hear. Shabil, you've been listening to Nabira. I'd like to hear your own take on this. Let's start from that very point where we are talking about parents building back in Africa, and then I'll come to the identity.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, thank you for obviously inviting me onto your show. I'm quite honored to give my opinion. And if we're talking about building back home, alhamdulillah, for me, I was able to be in Uganda for about 3 years, long period of time. I was able to kind of adjust, and I kind of saw the work that my dad put in over here and in Uganda. So it's something that I appreciate a lot more now that I've seen the process that we go through. And a lot of people say maybe it's not for the children or something like that. But I feel as though once the children kind of understand the toll and hard work and how blessed they are, the fact that their parent is able to sustain a family, obviously in the UK, and also be kind of living their dream, building for themselves, and also for like their later generation, and thinking about even their grandkids. You know what I mean? Like when inshallah, if we do want to have kids when we grow up, your grandkids being able to say, this is Judge's house. Do you know what I mean? And they come and enjoy the space and enjoy the time, the memories that they're able to build. Sometimes they don't have as much freedom that they're down in UK as in Uganda. So it's definitely a different kind of aspect being back home.
Right. Well, so would you consider moving there then? Because Nabira was saying half of people won't even consider going back there.
Me personally, because I was there for 3 years, I definitely would. And that's probably a goal for me. Once I've kind of accomplished what I've done over here, that's definitely a goal to go back home. And obviously while I'm working here to kind of look after my parents, because you know what, she talked about, the financial situation of taking a big pay cut when you go to Uganda. I think as children, that's kind of our responsibility to kind of look after your parents while they're there. Do you know what I mean? Be able to provide for them, even though it might not be, as much as they have worked for, but being able to, help them sustain the lifestyle, because they've worked atrociously a massive amount of time for you to become who you are. So it's definitely something that, looking after them when they're back there, I would definitely consider moving back to Uganda.
Now, in terms of tonight's topic, which is about identity, and actually that very aspect, you going to Uganda now helped you to shape up part of your identity, and it has helped to inform the kind of decision that you think you've made in terms of that. Actually, why don't I get Nabira probably to respond to that? Nabira, you've had Shabil's take, and having been to Uganda, the sort of feeling that he has, because he's built up an attachment. Do you think probably that's something that could have? Was that your own story as well,
or? With me, I went to Uganda from July. The starting of July to September, like early September. So I was there for quite a while. And I did like the environment and stuff. Like I liked Uganda a lot, but I feel like it's a huge culture shock once you get there. Like, here we're used to like Wi-Fi, we're used to just going anywhere. Whenever you want, you can get a cab, you can get public transport. But in Uganda, you can't really just be walking around however you want to. Like, there's certain things that you need to do. And I kind of found it, for the first 2 weeks, I kind of found it like, whoa, this is very different. This is like not something that I'm used to. But once you get immersed in the environment, you actually get used to it and you actually start enjoying it.
Would you consider being there? Would you consider moving there?
Yeah, I would. But I would need to have some sort of way of making an income that I feel like I'm comfortable with and I can still sustain the same lifestyle that I was living here.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Shamim, back to you now on the identity issue. There is the issue that there's the language that you speak when you get inside home. And then the
Yeah,
moment you leave, the moment you shut the back door and on your way to school, the slang
yeah,
comes in. I've sat on buses and you listen to the kind of language and you wonder,
yeah.
is this very confusing for you as young people between home and
Um,
school?
yeah, I think for young people, it's definitely confused when you're going through that identity crisis. But alhamdulillah, for me, I'm speaking on my behalf. Um, that time I spent in Uganda kind of gave me, a sense of identity, and I knew what I was as a person. I knew who I was, and it all comes back to priorities. Um, when you have priorities and the way of you shape your life, I think your identity crisis kind of sorts itself out. So for me, the first thing I prioritize in my life is obviously my deen, Islam. That's the
Mhm.
first thing, that I would say. I'm a Muslim first. Then the next thing I would think about, obviously, is where I actually come from. Where are my parents from? Who do I kind of want to be? Because identities, it has to be a foundation for what you're going to build on. You can't say, okay, I'm going to be like this, at home and then go to college. And I think it's very difficult for some people. Do you know what I mean? But me personally, because I go to a military college, they kind of accept every type of culture. You asked me a question earlier, do you know what I mean? Me
Yes,
personally,
that's where I was coming to, because now
yeah,
if you're proud of your culture, whether
yeah.
you carry the fufu or the ruombo to school as part of your packed lunch.
In the woman solo dutwala, I don't have a problem with it. You know what I mean? Because that's me.
Are you sure
That's
with that in Dagara, and then you add the
Oluwaga
language in
dutwala
front of
solo
the plate?
dosabika nendu Jacob yomna jana lavanti womb. Because that is something that I have grown to know that alhamdulillah, this is my culture. This is me. I'm not going to reject it, even though yes, I am British, and there's certain situations where I have to maybe tone down on my Ugandan side. But I also say alhamdulillah, there's some people that don't know where they were born. They don't know their parents. They don't have an experience of growing up in Uganda and understanding their culture, alhamdulillah. So it's definitely something.
So tell me, have you had a moment, and this is a question I'll take to Nabira, then I'll go to Sonia, who is on iPad there before she goes for her lessons. I hear she has a class, or at least to sort of balance and get a comparison. Shabil, have you ever had a moment where you had a crisis, trying to determine who you are, whether you are Ugandan or whether you're British?
Yeah. It was actually when I first went to Uganda. Nabil kind of talked on it.
Mhm.
When it's a culture shock. I got to Uganda. I was in a UNEB school, but Balita Chinawa High School, Mugongo. I get to the school. I've been there for about a term now. So now I'm trying to blend in with the students there. Speak Luganda, Kwigo Luganda, nabo nkwatagane nabo, mbategere imbera zawe, the kind of way that they carry themselves. And then there's this British side of me that is like, oh no, I do this a certain way. I can't do this. When I'm speaking to a teacher, I don't know what to say to respond in Luganda or use my accent in English. So I'm just like, okay. I sat down and I said, what is going to help me build myself as a person, as a Muslim, as a person that's going to be helpful in my community? Not only in the place that I am, give a good reputation to my parents that brought me here. And alhamdulillah, I kind of sat down and thought, you know what? I think blending in and adapting to the situation is the best thing that I can do. Instead of rather, repelling and saying no. I'm British, I'm here, I can be what I want. I don't think it kind of, it helps you move forward. So obviously, alhamdulillah, that was a point where I was like, okay, this is a situation. But then I blended in, and it was one of the best 2 years of my life. I learned a lot. I made a lot of friends. I learned a lot about myself. Alhamdulillah, I noticed I'm so lucky. There's certain things that people overlook over the time, and you say this is a must that I should have. But subhanallah, once you understand how lucky you are as a person, I think the identity crisis, it kind of
Did you not
because of my
struggle? Did you not struggle when you got back? Now coming again to reintegrate after having adopted now to a new situation, and then come back to that realities. Because one thing that happened to me, my first degree is in education. I'm a qualified teacher. So when I came to this country, part of my preparation was while I'm on the BBC and making a little money, I need to bring the family in. And while they allowed me in, they wouldn't pay for my family to come. So I needed to raise money to get the family to come in. So I went into teaching, but my teaching was supply teaching. One of the worst things that you can ever do in this country is be a supply teacher. Anyone who has ever been in that position now will sort of understand. And I'm in South London again. Another, it's Erith, it's Lewisham, it's Blackheath, and then I end up in a school actually which ended up getting closed, the Crownwood School. And then there was Thomas Tallis, which has also been taken down. I think it was in the borough of Lewisham, somewhere there. And I'm in class as a qualified teacher. I go in class. I had ways of, engaging the kids, and they were so difficult. But then there are times when I had to supervise newly qualified teachers who needed supervision. So I would go into the class as a supply teacher, but at the back of the class to supervise newly qualified teachers. This Zimbabwean lady, the teacher comes in, she's at the front of the board, and then this boy just wakes up and goes and lifts her skirt up, and then everybody's laughing in class, and I'm watching. And growing up and seeing the manner in which the kind of respect that we had for teachers, seeing this broke my heart so much, and I was so helpless as even to do anything in the circumstances. So when you think about certain things, and that's why I'm taking you come back from an educational system that is so strict, so built around routine, and then you come back to your lifestyle. How easy, how adoptable is that?
So for me, I'm actually, again, I say I'm very blessed, because I went from a very strict kind of regime to another strict regime, because I go to a military college. And the first thing that they instill in you is discipline.
You said military college?
Yeah, I go to a military college,
right.
PCT. Yeah, so it's very strict. The way we carry ourselves, the way, because we're not just representing us, we're representing, the army, the military, the navy, all these uniform services. So the first thing they instill in you is discipline. And I'm kind of ahead of some of the students there, because I had that already, coming back. But also touching on that point of education system in Uganda and over here, the sort of respect that we have for teachers in Uganda, I think it's absolutely detrimental, the way we respect teachers over here. Because me, myself, I was a trouble kid before obviously I went to Uganda, and I regret 100% how I treated teachers, because it's something that it didn't give them the kind of respect that they deserved for what they were doing for us. And a lot of children, they don't understand that right now, a lot of the youth, and it's very difficult, to integrate back into it. But once you have that sense of, you understand what you're here for, and you understand that this is a goal I want to reach, then I think, alhamdulillah, you kind of make it easy for yourself.
Shabil, you've been very fantastic. Please stay there. I'm sure there will be questions in the chat room for you, and feel free to come back later on in case a point is raised just regarding that. And I'm bringing in Sonia on the iPad just simply because before we lose her, just to give us a perspective in the United States. If you've just joined us, the program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim, Kayira. We are live on 75W Radio. We are live on Umma Connect, Facebook, on YouTube, and on Zoom, where we are with a very beautiful conversation having had from two young people, Nabira and Shabil, just giving us their perspective. Sonia, I come to you. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, Sonia, are you there?
Walaikum salam. How are you? Sorry.
Hello there. I'm fine, thank you. Good to see you, and good to hear from you, because I can't see you at the moment. You are in the United States of America. And my question that we are asking tonight is, who do you think you are? Who are you, Sonia?
Well, I'm Ugandan. I identify as Ugandan American because both my parents are from Uganda, so it just makes sense that I also identify as Ugandan. But I didn't grow up in Uganda. I grew up in America my whole life, so I also claim America as well.
So would you be American Ugandan or Ugandan American? What comes first?
Ugandan American.
In that priority, and there's no you haven't found yourself confused at any point determining which is which.
Maybe when I was younger a little bit, I was probably a little confused. But as I became older and learned more and grew more, then I put Uganda first.
We've been speaking about the idea of the kind of language that you use with your peers, on your way to college and back, and then the language you use with your parents, totally different. Do you not get a problem sort of crossing or rather balancing that line? You don't have a problem with
that? No, not really, because my peers, none of them are sincerely African, and myself, I sadly don't know how to speak Luganda. So when I'm talking to my mom and my friends, it's the same way. So I don't really get mixed up when I'm talking.
Mm-hmm. But I'm sure your mom now being Ugandan and trying as any Ugandan parent or African parent would do, she would slide in some Luganda words. If she did in front of your friends, would you feel embarrassed? Something along the lines of
no, I wouldn't feel embarrassed. She actually has no shame. She would talk about my friends in front of them in Luganda. I would only feel ashamed because I know she would use it to talk about them in front of them, but I don't really have a problem because I had nothing to be ashamed about.
So at college or school, did you get any opportunity to sort of highlight where you come from? Because there are times or there are schools where, for example, you have cultural days and people come and display the kind of places they come from. And America is such a melting pot that people come from, nearly the whole of America to find indigenous Americans, unless you are a red Indian. Otherwise, every American is an immigrant in one way or another. Have you had an opportunity to sort of showcase the Ugandan bit of you at school?
No, I haven't. And that's because I'm shy and I don't know how to really join the clubs. But they do have clubs for African descent, but most of them are mostly West African. It's very rare that I find somebody Ugandan, so I don't really showcase them much because most of the people here in Maryland, the DMV basically area, they're mostly West African. So you'll see a lot of West Africans in this area. If I was more in Boston, maybe I would see more Ugandans and be more open to be.
But wouldn't that be your opportunity as well now to showcase the Ugandanness? Because there are times when you're one and you make the noise of one just to make a point.
It would be an opportunity, but then again, I'm shy and I wouldn't want to do it alone. If I had more people with me, I'd probably do it. So yeah.
Well, I understand the shyness, but when it comes to identity now, if it's about fighting, I mean, you heard from the first two speakers, from Nabira and Shabil, talking about their experiences in Uganda. Have you had a chance to go to Uganda?
I was last in Uganda when I was about 2 years old, so I don't really count it as experience because I really don't remember anything. So.
Right. So when you call yourself Ugandan beyond just your parents, where do you place the Ugandanness? Because your idea of Uganda is 2 years old, which is literally about nothing. And other than just the things that you is it just the things that you hear from your parents, and that's your Uganda? Or do you go online? Do you take interest in YouTube videos, for example, just looking at Uganda to get a feel of the part that you call yourself Ugandan?
Mostly from my parents, how they grew up. I kind of take it with me as part of me, carry it with me. And I do sometimes go on YouTube. I look at the traditional dances here and there to learn them, to get closer. Sometimes my mom, I help her cook the traditional Ugandan meals to get a feel of being Uganda sort of.
Do you know how to peel matoke?
No. Okay. I can make chapati though.
You make chapati. Okay, that's understandable. Thank you very much, Sonia. But just in terms of identity now, thinking about the bigger picture, if someone asked you, who are you? How would you define yourself? I know at the start you said you're Ugandan American, but if someone was to ask you, who are you? Because the reason partly we are talking about this is a controversy that happened last week here, where a charity worker ended up, being asked where she's from, and she continued insisting she had been born and brought up here. She was sort of almost shy or uncomfortable with her Africanness. have you had a moment where your Africanness became, like it became a bit of a problem? How would you best describe yourself?
My Ugandanness never became a problem. Maybe when I was younger, and I remember my judge had picked me up one time in like a Gomez, and I was embarrassed sort of because I was in an old white area. So seeing I felt like an outcast because I was like, I didn't want nobody seeing her that way because I wasn't necessarily ashamed, but I was embarrassed. But as I'm older, I feel I have much more pride in it than I did. But when people do ask me where I'm from, I always say Uganda, and then they be like, "Oh, where is that?" And I'm like, "It's next to Kenya." And they're like, "Where is that?" Because most people here, they don't really know what Uganda is. So sometimes I don't waste my breath telling them because I don't have time to keep explaining to you where I'm from. It's like, get a map and look,
Sonia, I'll tell you, for me, whenever someone doesn't know where Uganda is, it's a very good opportunity for me to actually market it. And I don't only just market Uganda, surprisingly, I market Uganda, I market Rwanda, I market Kenya, I market Tanzania and Democratic Republic of Congo, because I sort of have an attachment to all these countries. And I feel that's why I was talking about the issue of crisis, sometimes having to deal with all these different crises. But for me, in that sense, it's not about crisis, it's opportunity to sort of explain to someone, where to put things into perspective. And probably now that you are interested in your Ugandanness, probably now you should take a lot more keen interest probably to see how better to identify yourself, how to market the region, your Ugandanness without a doubt. And I think as you're growing up, that is going to become quite critical. Is it something you see?
Definitely. Hopefully, inshallah, when I'm older and get a little more money, I would love to go to Uganda, spend some time there, really see my roots and like my family and all that, and like get in tune with my culture.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sonia. And you come from a very big family, I can tell you for sure. That's one. You will have a bit of work just trying to find thousands of cousins and other relatives. Thank you very much, Sonia. As this is come, let's talk with me, Kassim Kayira. 53 minutes past 8 o'clock, 7 minutes to 9 o'clock. And we are talking about identity. Who do you think you are? We've heard from young people, which I'm finding very interesting. And I'm sure listening into that, you have picked up your own particular lessons, just in terms of, where do we go? How do we deal with these identity issues? For those who have just joined us, I was using an example that, for example, when you talk about identity, it's just beyond just the name. Imagine a situation, you've come in, and the marketable thing is, you declare yourself as that, and then you will be put into support groups to be helping you and give a connect. The next thing is now you get the papers, you start living the life, and then the leaflets continue to come into your home for now. You have your wife, you have your children. How do you start explaining that? There are some of these realities that become very difficult, around us, and yet that's an identity that you have to keep because that's how you came into the system. Imagine a situation you've come in as well to seek asylum, you changed your names, and your children now, whom you left back there, the ones born here are perfectly fine. They'll find whatever is there. But imagine a situation where you left wife and kids, and then they join you later. But you came here as Muka Musoni, and right there you are Hajatinabu Kenya, and then all of a sudden you are Muka Musoni. Having to live those two lives can get very confusing. Now, when we talk about identity, I would like us to stretch out beyond just where you would think just the ID. And the idea would be that our children, especially, their DNA is ours, but their national ID is different. And that might be a choice. Well, let's just open up the conversation now. Having listened into the conversation, I'm sure it's sort of building up a picture. And I'm seeing, well, relatively several new faces or names coming into the conversation. Faisal Jemba, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello, Faisal. Hello, Faisal, are you there? Hello, Faisal. I will go to HK while we get Faisal. Hello, HK. Assalamu alaikum. HK. If you're at work, you can always just drop us a message in the chat room to say that you're unable to speak and we will understand. But definitely, I'm sure, well, this is a conversation where we get ourselves to talk and discuss on the issues. Everybody's an expert because you have a particular experience. We've heard from young people here. And in terms of their experiences, see how Sonia gets embarrassed as Jaja goes to pick her up from school wearing a gomesi. And then you understand and appreciate, like certain things look small, but then they might have a different impression. Think about boarding school and back home and where your parents, for example, would come to school, probably in a manner that would leave you with the name that everybody will call you till end of time. Those are things that don't go away. Ismail Musoke, I see your hand and I'll come to you. Definitely, you have a question for young people who have lived or visited Uganda. Ismail, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi barakatuh.
How are you today?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing well. I'm really enjoying the discussion.
Well, the conversation, as you know, is about identity, and the question is, who do you think you are? And that's what I put to you before you ask your own question.
Alhamdulillah, it's such a broad question because there's so many different angles you can look at it. I like the way you brought it. You gave us a journey and a story of who you are and how that shaped your identity. I was really interested to hear from the next generation as well. I'm not too much older than them, but I'm slightly older than them. So it's nice to hear their perspective as well, and how they kind of, because they're born here and raised here as well, or whatever country they're in, whether it's US or UK, how they incorporate that as part of who they are as well. So I do have a question for them, but I'll start off by answering the question first. I think for myself, before anything, I'll say Islam, Muslim, that takes it for me. I think as number one, my number one identity. It overpowers anything else. And the reason why I say that is because I love my culture, or all my cultures that I've grown up, whether it's the British culture, the London culture, or even the South London culture, because South London is a very specific culture as well.
Yes, South London.
Yes.
And you mentioned the issue of well, Muslim being the first point that is that something that you have grown into, that has just evolved over time?
Yes.
That you've always had, or as you grew up, you started appreciating that?
I'll say it's something that's definitely it's evolved over time. I think when you're younger, generally, and there are some young people who really love their religion, alhamdulillah, but mostly it's, you do it for your parents. So it's something that's there, but it's not at the forefront. I think through life experiences, through growing as a person and growing into a young man, I started to realize that, there isn't anything more important to me than my deen. Knowing, first of all, the purpose of life, which is, as a Muslim, we believe to worship your creator. So I think once I understood that and learned more about the religion myself as well, and went through that journey myself, I was able to place that in its proper place, which is at the forefront of everything. And then after that, I would say, Uganda. But even within Uganda, it's broad because, olokugamba ndi musajja muganda, ekyo nakyo bwekiri, ndi musajja wa mutima, neddira mutima, ekyo nakyo bwekiri. So there's layers to that, and that's all included. I'm not going to deny any of it. I'm going to take all of it. So that's also a part of it. That Sharhabil is my younger brother. So when he's speaking, he's my younger brother. Alhamdulillah. I'm very proud of him. Alhamdulillah, the way he was speaking was really good. But
he was definitely. I mean, you can see in the chat room that there's agreement on that.
Alhamdulillah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think because I've also had an experience of living in Uganda, it's given me a grounding understanding who I am, and I, developed that love for it as well. I've traveled back and forth over the years quite a lot. So it's a major part of my identity. And even though I've grown up here, I take that with me everywhere I go. I'm not ashamed to walk into a room and tell them, I'm Ugandan and these are my roots. And
Now,
I have no shape.
is that a situation that you had even during your school days here? Is that something that you used to feel?
Yeah, Sheikh Kayira, in school it was very different. In school it was very different.
That's where I wanted, because
Yeah.
with identity, the schools being the biggest socializing environments,
Yeah.
they mold who we become later on. Because if you start being uncomfortable in school, it's rare to find people who are sort of daft or closed up in school, getting to the public life and then sort of opening up. When they open, probably it might just be so crazy that you would worry about the outcome. But normally it's the schools that shape who we are. And within your school environment here, were you able to identify as Ugandan?
Yes. Yeah. So within the school here, during the early years, because I've studied in Uganda, I've also studied here. I've studied in a Ugandan international school. I've studied in Ugandan UNEP school. So I've had a very broad educational experience. But what I would say is, with the school over here, I think even just being African full stop growing up was a no-go zone, you know. Because you need to understand that our families are quite late in terms of migrating to the UK. Most of the parents, they migrated. I don't know when you migrated, Sheikh Kayira, but during that late 90s.
2003.
Yeah, so early 2000s, late 90s, a lot of the Ugandans were coming over, and we were part of that first generation. But what happened was, we were still seen as outsiders. So you had the Jamaicans, and they were already established in the Caribbean. So in school, you were seen as, they had nicknames though, Jews, you African booty scratcher, you're Tarzan.
So African is scratcher.
Something scratcher.
Yeah, right.
Something scratcher. They see Tarzan, you're from the jungle. They start making because of those stereotypes that they had. So you'd end up doing is just hiding in a corner and not wanting to come out and maybe kind of saying, okay, I'm black. So you just take the black label now. That's easier than to pick up maybe the African and have to pick up the baggage that comes with that. I think it has changed now over the years. We're more established and we're visible, and people are starting to know that we're here, and we're also standing up for ourselves a little bit and saying, look, we're here. However, back when I was younger, it was a different story. So it was going to Uganda because I went just early secondary school, and then that's when the identity started to come in. Now, when I went back and studied in Uganda, then came back again with a fresh perspective, and alhamdulillah.
Right. You had a question for young people.
Yeah, I have a question for the young people. So, and this is specifically for Sharhabil and Nabila. When you went, because I think Nabila spoke about visiting, and Sharhabil, you live there. Did you feel like you were accepted? Yeah, when you were in Uganda, when you went back to Uganda as a young person who's grown up here, did you feel like you were accepted? Yeah, that's my question, inshallah.
Right, thank you very much. Yeah,
and if so, also to explain and elaborate on that as well, or if not, elaborate.
So would that, and I think that by extension would influence whether they would feel the kind of relationship, just in terms of wanting to be associated with it. Because if you don't feel a sense of belonging, then it might be that then you decide that I was thinking this was home, but it's clear that it's not home. Sharabil, question from Ismail there. And Mr. Makumbi, I've seen your hand up. I'll be coming once we get the answer. The question from Ismail. Yes, please. Sharabil, did you feel accepted?
Did I feel accepted? When it comes to acceptance, you can be accepted on very many different levels. You could be accepted as a friend, as a leader, as someone for guidance. But once I adapted, I felt, to the situation that I was in, and I didn't show that I didn't want to be here. I didn't show that, I was bigger than them, I was better than them. Obviously my situation, I was a bit more fortunate than some of the students that I was studying with. For example, there were students that, alhamdulillah, my father was paying for my fees, but there were some students that had to pay for their own fees. And you see the struggle that they go through to get up, then they read their books, then they're doing this, they're working. So, I kind of understood that, alhamdulillah, I'm blessed. So now it's an opportunity for me to grow as a person. And I felt very, very happy to be able to, embed myself in that culture. And after that, I think, yeah, I definitely was accepted.
Were you able to buy pancakes at break? Because one of the things that made people popular is the ability. Because I grew up in the restaurant. So my mom owned the restaurant. It's what really paid for our school fees and so on.
Yeah.
Break time, I was always loaded, and so break time, I go there. When you have money, I just go cook a chipo pancakes. And I have supporters, people who just come and sing my name to be able to eat the pancakes. And that makes you popular and gives you a bit of acceptance. Were you that sort of person since you're coming from higher?
Yeah, when I first joined, I was that kind of person. Because I didn't want to be that person that, that didn't show that generosity. And I think in a way, it was my kind of way of showing that, I want to be with you guys. And, I want to make this a comfortable situation for everyone. I'll do as much as I can. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to feed the whole school. But, the people that, are maybe helping me out and, show a bit of gratitude towards them. And, the pancakes, they got stacked. They got stacked.
All right. Thanks very much, Shabir. Nabira, same question to you. When you went to Uganda, did you feel accepted? Was there a sense of acceptance? And if not, then a little bit of detail on that.
I feel like I was accepted, but with some people, I was accepted, but with like I can't even describe it, but like they look at you like, yeah, you're Ugandan and your parents are from Uganda, but you don't quite get what's going on. Like the struggles that they go through, you don't get what's going on. Your life is easy. You can buy whatever you want. Orimo sama, sinaibichi. And you're just thinking, what are you talking about?
Were you applying sunscreen every few minutes, just making sure you...
No, they just refer to about some of the people that come over, like,
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah.
But then I was just kind of thinking, what are you guys...
It's how we act that makes them respond the way...
That was the funny thing. Before I went somewhere, and because I like the way I was acting and the culture that I knew, the respect I gave people, the Luganda that I knew, they didn't actually think I was from London. They could only tell I was from London because the way I was dressed, obviously. Right. But there was one person that said, oh, like, when did you go to London? And I was like, what? And she was like, oh, when did you go? Like, were you born here and then you went over there? I was like, no, I was born in London. And the shift that she did was so strange. And I was just like, she was like, oh, I thought you was like from here, but you moved there. Like, oh, sorry. I was thinking, no, don't act like that. Like, we're all Ugandan here. Everyone's on the same kind of level. Do you know what I'm trying to say? I feel like they accept you, but they feel like you think that they're below you, if that makes sense. But I don't know, maybe because they had like bad experience with people in the past or whatever, they might feel like that. But not everyone has that kind of, demeanor.
All right. Okay, thanks very much, Nabira. Isa Makumbi, I bring you in now. We've had young people actually having their time, but I think it is very interesting listening to this, and I'm sure parents, I'd like to hear from the adults as well, just your own take on the situation. Yes, Isa Makumbi, welcome to the conversation, sir. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good to have you back on.
This is a very interesting topic.
I mean,
when I look at my life history, for me, we are the lucky one. We were born when Uganda was called the Pearl of Africa.
Could you adjust your camera a little bit? We can only see just the open roof alone. Yeah, okay, that's much better.
Where you could feel that you're Ugandan. We had education was based on none. The state provided almost everything from the textbooks to everything. When we went to for A level, we had free education, giving us all stationery free of charge. And I'm lucky, it was one of those, when I finished my A level, I made up my mind that I'm not going to study in Uganda. I wasn't forced out, but I applied for normal scholarship, which was advertised in the newspaper. I didn't know anybody on the board, and eventually I got the scholarship. And there are so many of us who got the scholarship. I didn't pay any penny. Even getting a passport, I didn't pay anything. And when I was leaving, I was asked how much money do I want to take? It depends on how much you can afford. But when I look at the Uganda of today, that's a real different picture. The government used to take care of its citizens. They did their best. Prospectively, when I went abroad, then the hair was let loose. That's the tail end of it. I mean, when I was in Soviet Union, they used to give us scholarship and even give us money maintenance. The state used to give us, Soviet government gave us pocket money and the government used to give us money for maintenance. That's how lucky we are. You couldn't do any odd job because you were well looked after. But political part came in. That's where it became too political, whereby for almost 4 years, I didn't have any traveling document. I was traveling on 4 documents because of my character that I was opposing the regimes at home. Yeah. So they made me to suffer a lot. Then after graduating, I went to Libya. I got a job. Funny enough, I had a passport, I went to Libya, but my passport was extended by the government. I was put on the blacklist, whereby if I had to use that passport,
you would be arrested.
So end up traveling on 4 documents for the rest of my life, till even I came here. The passport that I used was dodgy one. But when you look at perspective and what is the state is offering, I think I can call myself a Uganda from my primary school up to the A level. That's when the state was caring. That was Obote and Ameni's time.
And Issa Makumbi, you bring a very interesting perspective into the conversation that actually, that's why I say there are so many facets to this particular conversation on identity. You're bringing in an element where probably someone would not have thought about that your Ugandanness or your identity as a Ugandan was affected by events that were beyond your own self. And you find yourself now becoming a victim who has almost to lose their Ugandanness as a means of survival.
Yeah. So when I look at those dark days, that's what I call the dark days. It gives me the probability that either I'm a Ugandan or I'm a British. When I came here, I was welcome. There was some racism, but I put that aside. And I exploited the system, and they provided everything. They looked at us, could get a job. When I went to work with the local authority, I could put my point across and be respected. And I feel that there might be some racism, but not before my eyes. It might have been in the back, but whenever I had to do anything, I could apply for a job and get it. And when I went to the public and to the local government, I was providing service to the community and nobody could challenge my decision. But at home, you might have everything, but someone, because where it comes from, will challenge you. So when I look at that, at times I say, really, do I need to live in such a situation? That's where at times I get confused.
Now the question is simple, Issa Makumbi.
Yeah.
Who are you? Who do you think you are?
I think I would say 45% Ugandan,
right.
55 British.
Where is that? Because sometimes now that's an interesting conversation that we used to have in Rwanda, when you are half Ugandan, half Rwandese, and you're trying to gauge how much blood then, because now the percentages, is it from the head to the stomach, and then from the stomach from the knees to the feet? Where would you place that?
For example, if I go in Uganda, if I'm in trouble, if I pull out my British card, yes, it gets me whatever they want. But if I have the Ugandan card, at times nobody can listen.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Issa Makumbi.
So when you look at those things, you say, really, where can I get where can my voice be heard? That's the issue which is really disturbing me. And at times I'm more inclined that I'm more 45% Ugandan, 55% British.
Barakallahu fikum, Issa Makumbi. And it is 14 minutes, nearly 9:15 o'clock. The program is Come, Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira, and we are talking about identity. We are live on 75W Radio. We are live on Umma Connected, on YouTube, on Zoom, and on Facebook. And the conversation is actually getting much more interesting with all these different facets that are coming into the conversation. Enoch Sagara, I've seen you and I'm trying to get you to unmute yourself. Enoch, welcome to the program. Hello, Mr. Enoch. Mr. Enoch Sagara. So why don't I just move to Mchana Zulaika Nanyonga there? Zulaika, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And I've seen a hand from Soedi Masawa coming to you. Zulaika, well, we are talking about identity, and you've been listening. First of all, your reaction to what you have heard so far from the young people, and then totally different perspective from other two people.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yes, Mchana Zulaika. Yes, I'm trying to get your take, your perspective on what you have heard so far, identity-wise.
Yeah, identity is such a confusing topic. Yeah, it depends. It depends where you are. For example, when I came here, I was already a teacher in my country, as you know. Coming here, I decided to retrain and start teaching again. But the challenges you face is the confidence. Yeah, the confidence. You doubt yourself so much. First of all, when I came here, I started doing jobs. I worked in different areas before I joined the education system. And when I was working in some place in Tesco, one lady, we were conversing, and I said, "Oh, I'm a teacher." And the lady said, "Oh, why are you doing this shit for? Why don't you go back and teach?" So I was like, how do I go back and teach? I trained and then went to start teaching. But the challenges you face, the language itself, you think, okay, I know English, I did literature, I did this. The moment you start speaking, you're not sure if people really understand you.
I know that feeling. Like I said, yes. I did supply teaching, and it was one.
Yes. You doubt yourself. Yes. Yes. And
people wake up like a asking for God to take me to 3:45 when the bells would go and leave the school very quickly.
Yes, and another problem, like the lady the one you talked about, who couldn't say where she was coming from, or who felt that she was offended by being asked. Yes. The college I'm working in, of course, there are people who are born here, but their background maybe is from Caribbean or Jamaica. It's the same problem we do. Or when you see a fellow Black, you're excited. You say, "Oh, hello, so-and-so, where do you come from?" "I'm born here." Like, okay, what have I done now? But you really want to push and say, where exactly do you come from? Because you want that closeness. So I wouldn't want to talk for anybody else, but that situation is there even up to today. We have friends who are born here, but you feel you want to know where they come from. Do they have something to do with Uganda? Are they African? But the moment you ask somebody where they come from, they say, "I'm born here," and they shut it there. So I don't, like you said before, I don't know if they are, it's not something like they're ashamed of where they're coming from. It's quite difficult. That situation is quite difficult.
Maybe it's embarrassment, because otherwise, why would you find it difficult to say where you think your origins are from?
Yeah, but it's not embarrassment. If people from Africa don't find it really hard to say, I come from Uganda originally, I come from Kenya, I've come from Zimbabwe, but from people who come from other areas, they will find it so difficult. I don't know, maybe because of the way slavery and so forth,
history, yes.
They have that stigma or something like that. Right. So they feel if you're asking them where they were born, they are British and they want to be looked at as British. They don't want to be connected to anything else.
That past, all right. Thank you very much. Like Barakallahu Fikum. Lako Limited and then Moses Rutavujirwa. Welcome to the conversation. Nako?
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Yeah, this is Noor from Manchester.
Oh, Noor, nice to have you. It's the first time you're coming into the conversation. Great that you're here. Yes. Who are you? Other than being Noor from Manchester.
That is what I've come to discuss. To be honest,
yes,
I'll call myself a Ugandan more than being British, but it depends on many things. Like the previous speaker said, it depends sometimes where you get more benefits and services. There are times you just want to deny I'm not a Ugandan. There are times you just want to say I'm not British. So
what
really,
time, what time? Like what time? Probably that might.
For example, when you see all the issue happening at home, or when you go there, you don't get a service. You can go for one thing. When you go, you can't finish even a simple thing which has taken you maybe get let's say a birth certificate. People are even celebrating getting them, and you say, really, what is this? I was just saying, in UK, this one I would have got it even on a phone without traveling. So some certain circumstances force you to really say, really, what am I? But to what I wanted to share in just personally, I think for someone to judge what percentage are you, are you Ugandan or British or whatever country you are in, it depends on the bond you have with that country, where your strong bond is. For example, what I find is that people who have come here when they're adults, they are more connected back home than those who have come here when they are young. Because more memories are there, most of your friends are there, and you have that feeling one day I'll go back. That's why many people who have come here when they're adults, even maybe they have family, they want to put more money in Uganda. They just do business, although they fail, obviously, they don't grow. Most of them, they fail. They eat you, even family members can eat your money. But your heart is there. They keep cheating you. You send more. You think maybe this will work. Okay, let me do it. Because your heart is there. That's why you are doing all that investment. But then when to come to the children born here, for them totally, I would say 90%, very few would go totally back to Uganda. They feel more British.
No, as you're mentioning that, Shalabil, one of the young people that we had on the program, who is still in the conversation, has sent a question in the chat room to say, I wanted to ask the Ugandan parents, is it hard to incorporate the Ugandan aspects into the lives of their children? And that's the question I'm putting to you as a parent speaking.
Yes, it is hard.
Why is that?
The reason why it is hard, because children, when they go to schools, they mingle with many people, and most of them are not Ugandans. There are different cultures out there. I remember I once went through a social service issue, and we were doing this parenting course from the social workers. They were giving all parents who have had problems with their children, maybe children taken away, and they were giving us a parenting course. So when you hear that parenting course, basically what you've learned or the way we are brought in Uganda should stop there. It doesn't work here. You can't raise your child the way they raised you in Uganda. Then you're going to end up in problems. As far as I can see what that trained parent, and there were actually this Nigerian woman, she said for her, her daughter even doesn't want to hear what they call Nigerian food.
Jollof rice or
yes, she wants to be more like British. It feels that's embarrassing her. Can you imagine?
Yes.
So it is really hard, because when they exposed to schools, what they get from friends and different, because not all the school they go in are more Ugandan. No.
But is it not the responsibility of the parents now? Because now we are ending up with an identity crisis. You as a parent, you're supposed to transfer these cultures, these traditions are sort of generational. They were brought down from our great-great-grandfathers, and they got to us. And isn't it our responsibility that we should transfer these aspects to our children?
It is, and I think we should, but it is hard. The question is how. That's the big question.
Now, Sharabil was saying he was meaning in terms of the language and loving their culture. Is that so difficult to inculcate?
Language is okay. Language to me is okay. It is okay, especially when both parents are Ugandan. That is okay. But also, again, you find some cases where some people have married people who are not Ugandan. And then you are thinking now, English is the only way to add you all in there. If you start this, then the other person will be missed out. Yes. Although when you work it out together in the beginning, let's say, for example, my husband is from Ghana and I'm Ugandan. If you had worked it out, we would say, okay, let's choose one of our curricular languages. We start, whether Ghanaian, they can learn that, whether Luganda, they can learn that. But we didn't think it that way. And we thought, okay, because we are different, English will be the only language which combines us. But in the end, we've realized we would have chosen one language and we all learn from each other. And the English would have been picked up later.
That one language now, that is actually now, you are also bringing in a very interesting, and so many hands now, as the program gets towards the end, you start seeing heated debates and conversations coming up. I can see Moses Mutavugirwa, Soedi Masawa, and Janet, and I'll be coming to you. Noor, the question then is, if you chose, for example, to have one language, how about when you travel to the judges, you go to Uganda to your own parents, or you go to Ghana to your husband's parents? What is the communication? Is that still English? Or that's what you thought?
That's what I'm saying. That's the big mistake. I think we would have, that's what I say. In the first place, it would be better for both parents to discuss when the children are young. Let's say, and I would say, okay, as a mother, I'm more maybe with the kids, I'm going to teach them my language. You can also learn from it. I think men are more taking in than women. And most of the times, children are with women anyway. Yes. If the husband says, okay, no, you teach them yours, I'll also teach them my language, that's okay. What I have learned, kids can take everything, but we think they are young, they don't know, or they are stupid. But they are very eager to learn and they can take everything on board. But we didn't know that. But I've just realized this now growing up, and I'm a childminder. I know kids are capable of taking anything. We underestimate them too much. So I'll urge you all parents there, if you have a parent or a partner who is not a Ugandan, let the partner say their language. You also say yours. The kids will pick up and they will know.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mo. Thank you. Moses Rutavugirwa. Hello, Moses.
Do you hear me nicely?
Hello, Moses. Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay, thank you. The subject is very interesting. But
welcome to the conversation. Yes.
Good evening, everybody who is listening. But the question of identity is usually very strong in a sense of who you are. That is to say, your personal traits, your abilities, your likes, your dislikes, your belief in the system of faith or religious or social character. Anything that defines you is your identity. Although we try to think much about our tribes and culture also is part of identity, but it depends on how you are adapt to it. For example, people who have migrated from other countries and they have come to Europe, they find themselves changing from their own culture to a new culture, which normally describes their identity. So your personality trait and your abilities to what you are defines you as your character, as your identity in the strongest sense. That is my most important comment about this before we continue with a conversation or brainstorming. Because culture involves customs and social behavior. And also, you find that when you go to associate with the different people, you find that they are having different social behaviors which they have both, which are being born within their families or their societies. Now, when you go to an Indian community, it's very easy for him to identify himself as an Indian, simply because of the culture and society he belongs in. So I would not take tribe or language as an identity of somebody, but I will take your culture and your identity and your character. This is what it specifies you and defines you as a human being, and that's what defines you as your own identity.
Thank you very much, Moses. And well, of course, if you check with the Indians, the way they manage to do it, they will never have an identity crisis. Although, of course, now in some instances, those who have chosen as well to become so European, sometimes they lose a bit of themselves, but you will find that always, almost always, they are there. They'll keep their culture. They've brought in Indian food. Indian curry now is just a normal thing that every Briton, every American, well, I don't know about America so much to talk about the Indian aspects, but in the UK, for example, it is very normal. The Indian curry now is part of the takeaway that any Briton, white, black, yellow, brown, will order comfortably, and they've managed to establish that and put their footprint. Why is it that Matoke now is not part of the takeaway or the Rolex now going forward, since we have traditionally now turned it into our own product? Why hasn't it come to the table to be something that can be ordered? Jollof rice now, in an entire conversation went online, went big on YouTube about which jollof rice is the best. Is it Gambian? Is it Ghanaian? Is it Nigerian? Is it Senegalese? And they're all competing. And all of a sudden, people are going out and eating jollof rice. That is identity, whether you like it or not, it's part of that. There's the language, there's the food, there's the culture. All these different aspects actually come into form part of the conversation. Well, the program is come. Let's talk with me, Kassim Kayira, 31 minutes past 9 o'clock. And over to you, Janet. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Kayira.
How are you? And thanks for being back again today. Yes, your own take now, identity. Do you have any crisis where you are at?
No.
Is your son with you at all?
No, he's gone to bed.
Ah, right. Well, I thought he was there, then would hear his own crisis problem. That would open up another conversation.
Yes, but I have my own experiences, not in the UK only, but even growing up in Uganda. I was born in Uganda, but my parents came from Rwanda in the 50s.
Yes.
So for us, being Ugandan was because we were born there. I speak Luganda, I speak Runyankore, I speak Rutoro, I speak Runyoro, but I speak Nyarwanda perfectly as well.
Yes.
The culture never went away. We always knew we are Nyarwanda, even when we are born in Uganda. And that carried on, and that is our identity. Our names never changed, our culture never changed. Even if we got I remember when I was young, going to boarding school, they always referred to me as Muraro. And in I really appreciate the young ones who spoke, the young adults who spoke before. Sometimes you don't on you, you're like, what? So I live in a community where we all speak Luganda, we play with children, we knew nothing about that we are different. But then in school it's different. They could call you names. They could sing your names in different tones. But that, and I don't know how to say it. Of course, it would daunt on you as a young child. Probably you have a look, the Kanyindo Kabanyarwanda. You know, all those small meaning words or
yes.
You see them, okay, now I'm in UK and I have my own children.
Now, Janet, I was just about to ask you, you were born, you grew up in Uganda, and while you are Ugandan by birth, you managed to maintain, and actually Rwandese are some of the people that managed to keep their cultures, their language quite intact, despite remaining in Uganda for generations. They managed to keep the language, and it was almost a sort of a known secret how they would manage to still pick a language that would be unique and then manage still to integrate within other people. Is that something you've managed to inculcate within your own children? Are they able to understand Kinyarwanda, to understand Luganda?
Yes, but of course we also speak Luganda because that is our language as well.
Yeah.
I claim that as because that's my language.
Yes.
And it's like our children claiming English is their language. So Luganda is my language, even if I wasn't taught it by my mom, but I learned it and I picked it up and I appreciate.
And what I'm asking is, have you managed to impart that to your children? Because now with the identity crisis that we are looking at now.
Yeah, they know they are in Rwanda. We are from Rwanda and Uganda as well.
And they speak the language.
They speak as they understand as much as they can. It's hard. I need time to sit down, but they know they can write, they can read, they know their names, they know the greeting. When they go home, we have our community as well. When we go home, we go to Rwanda, we go to Uganda. And they know when they reach Uganda, they have to kneel down, the girl has to kneel down. From Nyabo, all those things we apply. When we go to that family, that's what we do, because that's Ugandan culture. When you go to Rwanda, this is what they do. This is because this is Uganda. And when they are here, they know what to do. This is English. This is England. And I always tell them, you are not ashamed of anything. This is where we came from. This is who we are. And I know the lady who spoke from Manchester. Children learn. And when you have children, when you give birth, I remember the midwife said, teach your children, speak to them in your language. Don't worry about English. They will pick it up. And indeed, that is what they do. My son went to school. He didn't know how they call water in English. He was asking for Amaz, in Rwanda. And guess what? Now he speaks like a Mzungu. When you're the other side of the world, you wouldn't know that he's a black boy. So, yeah. So I think it's just giving our children confidence that this is who they are, and us having the confidence that this is who we are. It won't take away our British passports, it won't take away our Britishness. If I'm in Uganda, there's trouble, I'm sure they will support me, or in Rwanda as a British nation. Yeah.
Fantastic.
That's what
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Just giving them confidence. Thank you.
Yes. No, it's that confidence. I think someone has just sent me a message here to say it's true, when you abandon your culture or lose it, then you lose your identity. And that's very important for many parents now. I think it's time we just went back to basics, did our best. We might have lost out on time. It's not too late. It might just be able that we can catch up. 2S to grow, 2S to grow. Please go ahead. Hello. 2S to grow, your hand is up. And I was trying to get Enoch Sagara as 2S to grow comes in. 2S to grow.
Hello.
Let's go ahead. Oh, right. You've come.
Hello, Mr. Kayira. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
You always come up with the juicy topics.
We are here struggling with identity crisis here right now. Yes.
Trust me, this is one we cannot get the bottom of it.
Right.
Because I think my understanding, I wish you try to define what identity is, so we know whether it is in crisis or not. I struggle to know what an identity is, because an identity, whether it's good or bad, is going to be an identity. So whether the bad identity is getting better, then it's in crisis, or the good one is getting worse, it's in crisis, I don't know.
Well, I'll say to you that considering the different angles that people have brought, you can see that just in that alone is a crisis. The fact that we have all these different aspects that relate to identity, that in itself, I think, is a crisis worth talking about. And
that is the point where I choose to differ, because, to be honest, when I look at what an identity is, I see it as a sense of, a matter of affinity and maybe similarity, association, or affiliation with a certain norm and certain culture. And throughout history, I mean, to be honest, identity and culture, which go hand in hand, I don't know whether it's gender defines culture or culture defines identity. It has always been on the move. And I do believe it continues to be on the move as long as, the human race exists, because, we are always changing. And because we are changing, you're always going to find that the new generation is going to look at the previous generation with a sense of, dismay, or with some kind of, either criticism, or maybe sometimes with some degree of appreciation. Now, people have raised the issues when you look at the issue of the identity crisis, and take, the sample it with the two communities we have in Uganda here, the generation that is born and raised here and that which came back from home, for those who have experienced both cultures. And I would say, I don't think you really have to get out of Uganda to say that, well, there is an identity crisis. And that's why I say that going back, for example, in Uganda, some 50, 60 years ago, we still had that really big issue where people were really very, very, it was very sensitive for one to cross from one tribe to marry into the other.
Yes.
And to some, that would be a taboo. And to marry, for example, a Muganda to marry from another tribe, or a Karamojong to marry another tribe, they will look at as if you've done something that is a taboo. That in itself was an identity crisis. Aspects of culture, you know, how children are raised, and, you know, here, the very thing that we see here, they do exist back home. Young generation tend to say that, well, you know, you can't raise your children here the way they're raised in Uganda. Is a bit of, you know, child abuse and ABCD. And these things, they do happen here. We do have all these words here. There's child abuse, there is a bullying, just as bullying was in Uganda. You know, remember, Sheikh Kassim, remember the Tamwegenda, Tamwegenda. You do find the same thing here. People have been raising here that the first time they go to English school here, I think it was Brother Ismail Jr. who mentioned how the kind of words were being used into them. So I think my take of this is that we've got to accept that the society is changing. There are things that used to be a taboo and they're now being accepted. But I think as long as we know who we need to be and identify what is that motivates the choice of the culture we want to, that defines us, then that is okay. Whether, for example, to some, it is the faith. The faith plays a very big role in defining one's culture and therefore their priorities and how they go about their own life. To some, it is money, to others, education, to others, a tribe. What you call a crisis, it could be just a timely matter, but with the generation as they go, they move on. I mean, you do know, for example, nowadays, there are, think about the native people born and raised, the white people in this community, who are really struggling to adjust, for example, to the, you know, the electronic, you know, money system. People want to have their hands on the money. They really find it very difficult. They don't want to
walk into the bank branches, which are getting closed day and night.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, can we call that identity crisis? And this is just one aspect of it. But when you look at, for example, the way, you know, the youngsters approach life and compare with their own, they see that, well, you know, things have completely, have completely changed.
But Shenchibuka, looking at societies, because as societies, I think it has been the responsibility over time, through generations, where it is the responsibility of the older generation to pass on the norms, the traditions, and then whatever modification happens to them, but they are passed on and then carried forward to the next generation. In a time where, for example, you come in as a Ugandan, you have your children here in the United Kingdom, you fail to teach them their local language. Wouldn't we call that an identity crisis? Because you look at Indians and they are continuing, they have maintained that very seriously. You come to Africans, and other than Nigerians and Ghanaians, for many of the other traditions, African traditions, they are struggling, especially when it comes to Ugandans, Kenyans. You come to a situation where actually even Tanzanians have been very good. They will keep the language within, they will teach those particular norms that keep their children in the know that, you know, they are these particular people. When it comes to Ugandans, Kenyans, you find there is almost an erosion of what used to identify them as a people. Shouldn't that be defined as a crisis then?
I think, well, it's not just a crisis, but I think it's kind of like a lost battle. I remember one of my lecturers used to define language, and when he was trying to define the importance of the language, he said that a society, a community without a language is like an army without an infantry and a navy. So you're an army, you don't have an infantry, you don't have a navy. And we know definitely language plays a very, very crucial role. We think the way we talk, and it plays a very, very crucial role in our, and I think, losing out on that one, to be honest, I think that's a big mistake. And it very much so for those families who see, they have the inferiority complex in themselves. They feel embarrassed to speak to their children in their native language, when that is the only time that is so crucial for them to master it and feel that they are proud of it. And probably one of the things that do really help, and I think Brother Ismail mentioned that he has has had a taste of both worlds, being here and educated back home. We often find many youngsters who have tasted the culture back home in Africa, whether in Uganda and other countries. They start seeing the world through a different prism. And no matter how short-lived that experience was, it really has a very significant and long-term impact on their attitude to life. So it all begins with the language. It definitely is really very, very important. And then in addition to that, other aspects of the choices. But unfortunately, I don't know whether it's too early, but what is quite very strange is that we are so keen on our children not just learning English, but we are happy that they learn French and German, but we just feel stopped short of encouraging, not even just being educated in the language, but just to speak to them at home in their native language, which I think is a big, big, disappointment, and something for which a big price can be paid in the long run.
Thank you very much, Chef Suleiman Chibuka there. So Eddie Masawa, your hand has been up and down, up and down. I don't know whether your point has been touched in. Soed? Hello, Soed.
Hello, thank you, Sheikh Kayira. Thank you.
Wow.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. The last speaker, Sheikh Chibuka, has made a very wonderful submission. Language, I wanted to begin from that point. Language is one of the most crucial things. Language and faith, those are the things that define somebody. And I've always said to people, going to the other side of argument of politics, I've said to people that those that think they can organize anything successfully and probably overthrow governments and everything. For example, the Arab Spring was successful because people were speaking the same language, they were the same faith. When I look at such things, that's what makes certain things very hard for example, for those that we're talking about. My elder, Muzeima Kumbi, was speaking about not wanting to be Ugandan because the way things are done these days, because previously they used to get free things. But please, Sheikh Chibuka has just mentioned, societies evolve. Things have changed, yeah. I know the time he was talking about Uganda had a population probably of 8 million people. The population as now is, we have 40 million people, and the tax base is small, the income is small. You cannot expect.
We have discovered more resources now. We have oil as well. We have widened the tax base.
But it takes time. It takes time. The things.
No, I get your point. I get your point.
People are comparing. They say, "Oh, you go back home, you can't get this." But the countries they're comparing themselves to, these countries have been in this for more than 100 or plus years, 200 years. We're just a young nation. So that should not put off people from taking their kids back home. And then I've also made an observation. There's this identity crisis thing is more in the girl child, especially the girls born here. The boys, alhamdulillah, I've interacted with many of them. They would love to be identified as Ugandans. But when it comes to the girls, I don't know, people should tell me, the girls don't want to know. There's a speaker who said that their daughter doesn't want even to be identified as Nigerian. And that's very true of so many of them. I've gone to my friends' houses here, and their daughters, when you compare them to the boys, the way they conduct themselves, the boys are more forthcoming in terms of wanting to identify themselves. Our uncle, you can even see them trying to make an effort. But the girls, they're in their own planet. They will even tell you, I hear we're from Uganda. I hear, there was one speaker who was in the US who was saying when she grows up, she gets the money, she will think of going and then trying to rediscover her identity. But that's wrong. If her parents have the money, you can't leave it too late for them to go in there. By the way, Uganda can be even hostile to some of us who were born there if you take so long to touch base.
Well, it looks like so when you've touched a chord with someone, Nabira, who was our first speaker in the conversation. Let me just bring her in. Nabira, you have
I'm
your
sorry.
hand up.
Nabila, I'm sorry.
Let me just start off by saying salam alaikum. Let's start with the video. I disagree with what the last part that he was saying.
Yeah.
Saying that females, like girls, don't want to identify as Ugandan. Because I feel like it's the complete opposite. Maybe it's the people that I'm around. It's more the girls identify as Ugandan, and from young their mums instilled into them the culture of being a Ugandan woman and the things that a Ugandan woman needs to do. And just by that, they it's intertwined into their daily life, and they identify as a Ugandan woman and they're proud of being so. But I feel like with the guys, it's kind of like, you know, go to school. If you don't go to school, okay, get a job. Like, it's not really, oh, be a Ugandan man. To be a Ugandan man, this is what it needs to do, you know. I feel like it's quite the opposite with the people that I'm around. It's more the women and the girls are very proud of being a Ugandan woman and know what to do and what their roles are of being a Ugandan woman.
Nabila, you're really challenging me that I'm going to start getting around the Ugandan girls and see whether they actually feel that pride, because I would beg to disagree. I think boys feel more proud of being Ugandan. And actually that comes across just in terms of even the intermarriages that are happening now. More of our girls are getting married to the Nigerians and Ghanaians, and not many.
Don't you feel, okay,
yeah?
This is not... We are not bashing Ugandan men, because we love the Ugandan man.
Nabila.
You know? We stand for you guys. Now, yeah, hold on, uncle, hold on. Now, yeah, don't you think there's a reason why some Ugandan girls are shifting from Ugandan men?
Well, you better tell us.
I just want to ask, if we're going to be honest, do you feel like there's a reason why they are shifting?
No, I would like to hear the reason, because now you are the girl, you are the lady, you are in a better position, probably. Educators.
I feel like, actually, let me let Uncle. He has a point.
No. Let me hear that from you, and then we'll allow him. We have 8 minutes now that we're trying to squeeze more hands in. Yes, go ahead, Nabila.
I feel like some...
Because I think that is also something to do with identity. It actually fits in pretty well with the conversation.
I feel like parents put a lot of effort into their daughters, into making them strong, making them know what their roles are within the household, within a marriage and whatnot. And on top of that, making sure that they're educated, they have enough knowledge, they have the deen and everything. But with the men or boys, quote unquote, it's like they're not really putting as much effort. So there's not as much value. With some, not all of them, because I've seen amazing men, amazing boys doing amazing things. But there's some of them that they don't match up to what Ugandan women are offering, the ones that I know anyways. So some are shifting to people that they can see that there's a good compatibility, you know, they're coming to bring value and not just coming to leech off them or like suck what they've built, because they're just thinking, okay, you're educated, you're this, you're that, you're deemed, but we're not interested in that. And if they just want you to do this, no, sorry, if someone's built up their child to be so valuable, you can't now belittle them and think they're gonna just accept it, because it's just not gonna happen.
No, Nabila, the reason you have really touched a very big chord is I've been requested officially to organize a big, probably 2-day retreat for men, for young men. The problem again is every man thinks they are clever, and so when such lessons come up, they don't want to go and take lessons. Everybody thinks they're clever, they think they know, while girls go in and take it in and study and accept to be, you know, educated and informed. But I've been put to a very big task. I've been asked by very responsible people to organize a retreat for men just to go and talk about these things. Of course, it is a continuous process. 1 day, 2 days workshop won't be able to provide all the answers.
I feel like that's the I think that's
for the first time it will provide an opportunity for people to sort of listen and raise the issues and see where we are weak.
But I feel like that's the issue, because with the girls or the women, from time when they can speak, like it's instilled into them until they leave their motherly home, like their father's house. But with the man, it's like you get like a 2-hour intervention before the nikah, and yeah, you're off you go. It's not gonna work. It has to be instilled into them from young, not just 2 days. I feel like
allow me, Nabira, when we organize a talk on Come Let's Talk with Kassim, Kayira, some point, inshallah, where we just look for the young men and young women to come and discuss these issues, because I think we are at such a time and such a critical time, and this is something that has kept coming. Men are less prepared, and you find women are prepared, and then the compatibility now becomes difficult to find a package that is fully packed, wrapped well, coming into an unpackaged package for that matter. I can only thank you so much for your contribution tonight. I'll just try to see if I can fit in 2 more people just with 4 minutes to the end of the program. Becca, I'm bringing in Mr. Makumbi. I'll come to you, inshallah, because you've had a chance to speak, and I'll definitely bring you in. Let me just get to Becca, and this hasn't spoken.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. I'm sure you've had the bombshell from Nabira. Definitely, it's still burning there where you are. So identity.
This is a passion. This is a topic I'm very passionate about, because as a person, me personally, I feel like we ought to wake up as Black people. We ought to wake up as Africans. We ought to wake up as Ugandans, to be precise, because there's this mindset. There's something that rubs me up the wrong way, because when I hear parents saying that our kids will never go back to Uganda, when I hear parents saying our kids don't speak Luganda, and they say it with pride, they say whereby they say it in a way that, our kids are British, our kids are British, they're not Ugandan. Unless you're going to win a gold medal for Britain, you'll never be British. Look at what happened to our footballers, Saka, Rashford, Sancho, when they missed the penalties. Now they're celebrating them. Against France, if they miss the penalties, they're going to be monkeys. Do you get what I mean? This is the reality that we need to wake up. Look at Rishi Sunak. The moment he went into the parliament, his identity came out. He's proud. He's Indian. He says it, But then the moment when it comes to us, especially because I'm Ugandan, so I'm going to be speaking about Ugandans. To me, I feel like as a parent, if your child does not speak your language, I feel like you've failed as a parent. And I'm not saying that with disrespect, but I'm saying that because tomorrow on Bridging the Gap, we're discussing as a parent, if your child's failure, who's responsible? That's our topic tomorrow. But I feel like, me personally, if your child does not speak your native language, you have failed as a parent, because we've come so far as Black people, and we need to kind of like make our stamp. So for me personally, my daughter, she speaks Luganda. If you ask her where she's from, she'll tell you she's Ugandan, but she's only 4. And I feel like we need to be proud of where we come from. If we are not proud of where we come from, I'm telling you, we are going to disappear before no one. We're going to tarnish before you know it. There'll be Chinese people living in Uganda, white people living in Uganda, and there'll be no more Ugandans. So we need to be proud. When I hear people that I've been here for a long time, but then there are people that came here after me, but then they don't speak Luganda, and then they have the guts to ask me, oh, how come you speak Luganda? You came from Chankwanzi, you came from there, you speak Luganda, and now you're here because you've got a British passport. Now you feel like you're British. You don't speak Luganda anymore. And then you pass it on to your children. Oh, my children will never go back to Uganda. Oh, my children they don't speak Luganda. I'm telling you, please, I know people that give lessons, Luganda lessons. If your child does not speak Luganda, please contact me. I can get you in touch with someone that teaches Luganda. If your child does not speak Luganda, if you have a child from Little, please call me. I have baby lullabies that speak Luganda, songs like, kids songs. Please contact me. I'll share them with you so that your children can learn Luganda. Please, we ought to wake up. Tomorrow on Bridging the Gap, we're discussing, as a parent, if your child has failed, whose fault is it? From 7 o'clock
All
tomorrow,
right,
inshallah.
Becca, thank you very much. And that's exactly 1 minute to 10 o'clock when the program should be ending. And I'll bring in Isa Makumbi to have the last word. In the meantime, there's a message here. When you are proud of your original identity, you will keep it regardless of any affiliation. But when you think of yourself being inferior, you will try to identify yourself with other identities. And for that to remain healthy and strong, it has to be embedded right from the house you reside or we were brought up. Your character will define your identity. You can easily be called a gangster or a Rastafarian, depending on how you clothe or present yourself. So I do believe that your trait and perception will eventually be used to identify you. Isa Makumbi, you have the last word.
I think I've had a good discussion about something which has been very controversial. People, when they talk about where I belong, that's the most important thing. People have been talking that I don't teach my children the language. You look at the example like the Jews. They've been abroad for almost about 4 centuries.
Yes.
But they've got a connection with the Israel. That's the biggest lobby in the world. Wherever they are, they got it. What we think about people who come abroad here. If you embed yourself properly in this place, you become of a high weight, you can do more to help Uganda than someone who wants to be on the fringe. The problem with the Ugandans don't want to go into the inner community of the society. They want to keep among themselves and they just get dropped out. If you want to be more of a Ugandan, here you go to the facilities. If you're British, you have access to technology, access to everything. If you master that and then transfer it back to Uganda, you would have done a very good job than someone who can speak fluently Uganda, but it contributes nothing to the country. When you talk about what my people, when I say 45%, I'm like this. Though those who are a bit criticizing me, they have less investment in Uganda than me who say that I'm 45% of this. Because I got expertise from this place, I'm transferring back the expertise back home. So the advice is, if you want to go further in this place, if you are within the society, they'll accept you and open up everything. You get the knowledge, then you transfer it back the knowledge back to Uganda. Be more Ugandan than someone who speaks Luganda while he has nothing to contribute to the nation.
And thank you very much, Isa Makumbi, having that last word and things actually to take home tonight as we leave. Very beautiful conversation, but as always, it actually, ends up when it is still just getting much more interesting. Of course, a lot of these topics we just sort of touch the seams of the topics. Deep inside there are much more aspects that actually go into these conversations around things that actually affect us and stay with us for a long time. Identity, of course, is very wide, as we have seen tonight. Definitely, coming into this conversation, looking at the different aspects. I was thinking that I'd given Makumbi the last word, Haji Makumbi, but no, I'll go to Hajat Sar and have the last word. Hajat Sar, please just accept to have the last word on this identity issue. Having listened to the entire conversation with the young people coming in with the kind of challenges that we face, the realities that we have to live in. Sheikh Chibuka coming in with identity now on the move, constantly moving. Where do we take this? Where do you think is the way forward for identity? Probably it's not in crisis, but it definitely needs re-identification. Identity now needs to be identified. Your word.
Thank you so much, Mr. KK. I think I agree with all the speakers. I think all the contributions are quite food for thought. And I wouldn't say anyone did do the subject justice. We really need to put into consideration everything that has been said and try and work on it. And it's a very good thing to also having heard from the young ones. They have shown that they are really happy to identify their roots, and some have already been to Uganda and been really happy in Uganda, which is so encouraging. I, for one, thought that they would never even ever think about
going to that country of ours, which is full of dust, but they don't even look at that, because I've seen a few videos showing people not really happy going from a very clean country to our country, which is full of dirt and mud. I'm quite happy with everything that has been discussed, and I pray that Allah gives us the guidance to always be proud of ourselves and not think low of ourselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to everyone who has been part of the conversation tonight. We are back next week, inshallah, same time on Tuesday, with a different topic that will be very interesting, you can be assured. Thank you very much for making it tonight, and always keep it calm. Let's talk with me, Kassim Kayira. We have been live on 75 W Radio, live on Ummah Connected, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Zoom. Have a very good night, and inshallah, hope to see you next week, same time, Tuesday. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.